towards the sun. You feel the warmth of the rays, and then you know you're alive, and you don't have to be afraid of anything, 'cause you know.
Welcome to the Bassline. Dr. Henry Ealy is a naturopathic doctor, the founder of the Energetic Health Institute, and a champion of medical freedom. He has been involved even at the forefront of both the health and wellness as well as the legal aspects of the freedom movement. I am utterly delighted to welcome back to the Bassline the energetic Dr. Henry Ealy. Welcome, Dr. Ealy. How are you this morning?
I'm doing good, brother. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing great, my brother. Really great to hear from you. I'm so excited to have you as my first guest of the year. I am a New Year's baby, so I'm just riding high on the New Year's energy. And I do have resolutions, medical freedom resolutions, particularly for this new year. And I want to challenge everyone out there in earshot range of my voice to think of what they can do, think of what we can do together to move the conversation forward, right? We don't want to be stuck in an echo chamber, as they say. Mm-hmm. We want to figure out new ways of activating people's minds, of helping people wake up, of helping empower the disempowered. And there's a lot of work to do. So I hope everybody's animated going into this new year. And before we get into our conversation, I want to shout out my latest Substack article. I have an article called The Old Black Sayings. And please check out Jeremiah Hosea on Substack. Please subscribe for free if you can. I wouldn't mind the birthday gift of you becoming a paid subscriber. It does help keep the wagon wheel rolling over here. But in any case, check out the article. First of all, read it, share it with people. I would love for this show to represent something palpable in terms of when an article comes out, when a new bit of information needs to be shared, that this Bassline community can help animate that process a little bit. So, let's make a dent, let's make a difference, let's move the needle, so to speak, pardon the pun. And also, I want to point out that when I do ask for support for this program, I'm not asking just for an outright donation, which I would accept. But I'm a chess teacher. I would love to teach a chess lesson to you or a young person in your family. You certainly will get a discount, a medical freedom discount to start out with, and then a Bassline discount. But if you've never learned how to play chess, seriously, don't be afraid. I'm a very experienced teacher, and one thing that I do is I customize my lessons for precisely who I'm dealing with. I don't just start blabbering about chess theory and saying things that someone might not understand and say, okay, there's your chess lesson, where's my money? I try to really function as a chess coach who meets you on the level where you're perceiving the game and making resources available for the student. And of course, you could go to jeremiahhosea.com and just download the theme song for this show for $1. Love's the Highest Truth, plus a lot of other really good music there. Or in my opinion, good music. But yeah, we have a lot of work to do. And we have a great guest here to start off the new year, Dr. Henry Ealy, the founder of the Energetic Health Institute. And I want to get right into the question of Dr. Ealy. Where do we stand with the grand jury activities that were going on when we first spoke? Has there been any progress? Any good news, bad news? Just get us up to date about where we stand with the grand jury activities.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on. And I got to tell you, one, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, brother.
Two,
appreciate that.
Happy New Year.
Thank
and
you for that, too.
Three, I'm terrible at chess, but I'm a domino master.
Oh.
So if you're into dominoes at all, maybe we can play a game.
Yeah, we could trade lessons. Can we do virtual dominoes?
We could do virtual dominoes and chess. You can teach me chess.
I would love to. And chess, by the way, there are legitimate health benefits to chess, by the way. It does fire up those neurotransmitters in your brain, so it helps stave off Alzheimer's and dementia, if that's the motivation that you want to get started. And what's an interesting thing about chess, I'll say quickly before you answer that first question, is just people bring this sort of anxiety to the game that it's a reflection of their intelligence, that if they don't sit down and just start mastering the game right away, then they must be dumb or something like that. And it's really as ridiculous as going out to the basketball court and expecting to suddenly be Michael Jordan or LeBron James or something. It's like, hey, you don't have to be LeBron James. Just shoot a couple of hoops, get a little exercise like any person in the neighborhood, bouncing around the ball at the local basketball course. The same thing with chess. It's just a game. It's not the chess world championship. It's not Fischer versus Spassky as soon as you sit down at the board. But yeah, so no anxiety about chess. It's just a delightful game. But where do we stand with this grand jury, Dr. Ealy? Any good news or bad news to report? What's happening?
Well, in the ultimate game of chess, I think that's what we're playing right now. And and I've said this many times to everyone. Our first foray into the grand jury work was dedicated towards seeing how our enemy was going to defend against the attacks that we were presenting. And we had presented a 62-page grand jury petition, our prayer for relief, with Senator Dennis Linthicum, Senator Kim Thatcher, authored by an incredible team of researchers, John Bodwin, Keith, Political Moonshine, the Albert Benavides from our VAERS expert, and plus several other of our team members, one of who passed away sadly late last year, Judge Paul Nally, who was our expert on the law and especially on grand juries, along with Kelly Mordecai. Now, we have an incredible team, and we pressed through the Ninth Circuit as well as through the appellate court in the Ninth Circuit. And what was very interesting, Jeremiah, was you learn, and this is, I think, your lesson with chess, is that, hey, you're going to lose the first few times you play, right? Because it's a learning lesson. You're learning what not to do.
I want to tell you a great quote quickly. Arguably the greatest chess player of all time, Jose Raul Capablanca. A lot of people don't know the third world champion of chess, who was the most accurate player from his generation. Jose Raul Capablanca said, "A player must have played and lost thousands of games before they can avoid gross technical errors." So I just love that quote, because it's not just played, it's played and lost. And it's not you do that and you're a good player. It's, now you can avoid gross technical errors. But go ahead, sir.
And it's right in alignment with Sun Tzu's Art of War. We are learning your enemy. You have to learn your enemy. And that's what we did with the first one. We knew the Department of Justice wasn't going to be favorable. We knew that from day one. We had actually gone to the Department of Justice in 2020 and in 2021 again, attempting to get them to take on this challenge of presenting the information. We had compiled over 1,000 pages of evidence at that point, and they declined. We had two senators, Dennis Linthicum, Kim Thatcher, put on official memorandum to the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice refused to take up the call. And so we said, okay, well, let's file. So we filed, and we filed at the Ninth Circuit Court in March of 22, and the Department of Justice then got involved. And this is where it gets interesting. They got involved specifically to defend the people we were accusing of willful misconduct. Now, for your audience who's getting aware or being made aware of this right now, the reason we went after willful misconduct, which has since been proven by the December 4th publication from the Congressional Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic, and your audience can go look this up. They have a summary, and they have a 47-page document that we urge all Americans to read, which is the most scathing subcommittee report that I've read since the Belmont report, which exposed the Tuskegee experiment. This is a scathing bipartisan subcommittee. There were 9 Republican members and 7 Democratic members, so this is a bipartisan effort. And in this paper, in this subcommittee report, Jeremiah, what's so fascinating is that they tell you point blank the origins were definitively lab gain of function. They tell you Fauci lied and misled. They tell you that masks did not work and there was no science behind them. They tell you that the distancing, there was no science behind it, that everything we were told was an act of willful misconduct.
Wow.
And that becomes very important because the only protections that the pharmaceutical industry has from being sued by people who have been injured or killed, families of the people who've been injured or killed by the shots, is the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. Specifically, it's 42 USC 300 AA dash clauses 11 and 22. People can go look this up in the United States code. But what they have are those protections built in, except, and of course, the PrEP Act as well. Forgive me, I almost neglected to mention the second act. But between those two acts, there are two layers of protection for the pharmaceutical companies from being sued when their vaccines injure and kill people. And this is a very important point because the only thing that nullifies those protections is willful misconduct. And I think that our whole thrust has been, we can prove beyond any shadow of a doubt willful misconduct. We wanted to see what the Department of Justice and our judicial system was going to do. Well, our judicial system moved the goalpost on us. And this is very sad to see, but it was a fact. They said that we were attempting to prosecute the people that we had named. We had named Rochelle Walensky and Robert Redfield, the former directors of the CDC. We had named Xavier Becerra and forgive me, I'm forgetting the other previous director of the Health and Human Services Department. Right. And we had named Brian Moyer, the head of the national, the NVSS, that's our statistical agency that works underneath the CDC. We had named them as willful participants in this fraud, and that we had said very conclusively, we are not, and we actually stated this outright, we are not demanding prosecution. A citizen, unfortunately, does not have the right to demand prosecution under our laws, which is insane when you think about it. But we do have a right to demand investigation. So we were very clear in our opening statement that we demanded investigation by a grand jury, not prosecution. Well, the first judge that reviewed our petition said that we were demanding prosecution. And of course, this came after the people that we had named that needed to be investigated were now being defended by the Department of Justice. The initial person that we notified, the initial U.S. attorney that we notified of these crimes against the American people, the Department of Justice then relocated to Nairobi, Kenya, so that we could not subpoena him.
Wow.
So they knew that we had them in the crosshairs, and they started making allocations, and one of those is to move the goalposts. So the judge accused us of attempting to prosecute the people, even though we explicitly said we were not asking for prosecution, just investigation, because a grand jury's job is to decide whether or not there is enough substantive evidence to support an indictment, quite frankly. But a grand jury can also say, no, there isn't enough evidence to support an indictment, and then return what is called a no bill or no true bill, meaning that the person or the people will not be indicted. But the judge said, I'm not going to give this to the grand jury for consideration because I'm going to move the goalposts. So we appealed. And when we appealed, they originally scheduled a date for us to present our case, 15 minutes. Our attorney, Stephen Jonkis, was going to get his 15 minutes in front of a tribunal of judges to plead our case on why they should overturn this ruling and present our information, our petition and the 1,000 pages of evidence to a grand jury for consideration and further investigation. And literally the day before we were going to appear in the appeals court, the judges all told our attorney he did not need to come. They were rescinding the offer to present and that they had already ruled and made their decision. Well, of course, their decision was not in our favor. But in the process, in all of the documents that went back and forth, we were able to learn how our enemy was going to try and defend themselves. And it's a common refrain over the last 4 years, sadly. They were going to try and defend themselves by moving the goalposts and also falling on a doctrine called lack of standing. And what the judge additionally had said was that we did not prove that the seizure of our constitutional rights was a harm to us. Now, these are two senators representing over 500,000 people, as well as myself, representing myself, my family. I have loved ones who have gotten the damn shots and been killed by the damn shots. I have a number of people I know that I've worked with to help them recover from injuries incurred by the down shots, and I'm talking in the hundreds, and really at this point probably in the thousands.
Yeah.
But they said we did not prove harm. So we said, okay, we got you. We're going to see what happens with this election. And unfortunately, we got the election result we had hoped for. Whether that materializes, we still have hopes, and we still have to wait and see, quite frankly. But we do know there's going to be in 2025 a turnover of the Department of Justice as soon as President Trump is inaugurated. And with that, we are going to aggressively refile, and we are adding Ernest Ramirez, the father whose son, Ernest Ramirez Jr., was killed by the Pfizer shots. We are adding him to our petitioners list because if he doesn't have standing to say something is wrong here and it requires an investigation, and quite frankly, no one in the world can ever have standing. So we have taken to heart and learned our lessons. We've gotten our 1,000 losses in, and now we are ready to go back after them. We've actually been prepping for this for several months now, and we're just awaiting the turnover so that we can refile our petition and in addition to add, I can't tell you how many new exhibits. We're adding that entire congressional subcommittee report that I mentioned. And I'm actually drafting right now a peer-reviewed paper, a paper that will be peer-reviewed, that discusses the objective reasoning for recalling the shots. I'm actually, before the interview started, I'm actually deep in research on the swine flu vaccine that was recalled in 1976, learning everything historically that led to it. One of the things that's very interesting just this morning that I found was that I found an article from, where was this from? It's New York Times from 1976 on this. And what's really interesting is that 9 states halted the shots after only 3 people had died. So the precedent isn't the 36 deaths that we have been quoting for so many years. The precedent is actually 3 deaths. And what's very interesting about
should be
this
one,
is
right?
that, well, it should be one, I agree, 100%. But the interesting thing about this is that the states were the ones that halted the shots. So far in my research, it's not the federal government. And so that suggests that potentially the states have much more power than they've been eliciting.
Yeah.
And I think this peer-reviewed paper is going to bring to light a couple of those things. That, look, there's mass collusion and willful misconduct. We all know it. The corruption is so obvious to everybody who's been even moderately paying attention to this.
Yeah.
It's understanding this principle, I think, is so important. If we are to live in a society of laws, then those laws have to be enforced without prejudice. And what that means is that those laws have to be enforced regardless of the family in which you were born, regardless of the amount of money associated with your name, and regardless of the amount of influence you may have over the American people. In fact, if we're going to live in a republic, again, a republic that is founded on integrity, it is the very people that have willfully misled us that should be held to the highest standards of the law.
Yeah.
And that's the push that we are going to make. And I hope that RFK Jr. does get his confirmation. And I hope that he is serious about what he's previously stated about aggressively pursuing RICO, which is racketeering charges. This is basically statutes that were in place to try to take out the mafia.
Mm-hmm.
And I am hoping he's very serious about that, because I'm going to support him, of course, throughout this process. We've been supporting his work and health freedom in general. But I think we are not going to get to where we need to be in terms of restoring trust in our governance, the people in our governance, and the processes that we have in place until accountability is realized.
Yeah.
And that's what we're after with this whole grand jury thing. Accountability, so that Americans can once again trust our Department of Justice, trust our governance, and trust that they're not trying to kill us, because objectively I cannot say that they aren't trying to kill us at this point, and that is a very, very dangerous play in an armed society.
Yeah. It certainly seems like they are trying to kill us, as far as I could tell. And I would say that from one, pushing and implementing such a harmful product across society, and then two, ignoring the harm of said product. So there you go. There's sort of the 1-2 punch of, okay, you inflicted harm, and then you completely disregarded the harm you inflicted. So, yeah, we have a serious problem here. I would be remiss if I did not mention we have started a new X community, Twitter, whichever you prefer, community, the Stop the Shots community. We've been actually doing nightly Twitter spaces since Christmas Eve, and I've been on each and every one of them. So please, folks, I've said it before, but there's a lot of good stuff going on X. I don't mean to pressure you to interact with a corporation or to start yet another account, but there's some really good connections being made on X, and I would really encourage that you join. Just search it out on your search engine, or not search engine, but the search bar on Twitter. Look up Stop the Shots. Find the Stop the Shots community, or email me directly, jeremiahhosea@gmail. I'll just send you the link. But we're trying to build up that community actively. So that's something that you can do to begin with. Is just join that community. It's like signing a living petition, in effect. And we're going to have regular spaces there. I'd love if you host some Twitter spaces on there, Dr. Ealy. We want to bring more hosts on board. Yeah. So
yeah, I'd love to come over. Yeah, well, I'll. How about I come over sometime next week, and I share with folks where we are with this peer-reviewed paper. Our intention is to actually submit it by Friday of next week. I want to push this through. We have so much information out there now. We don't need to find every little bit to prove every little thing.
Yeah.
But I think what we have to do is objectively stop as Americans for a second and go, you know what? If something injures or harms someone we love, that it should be recalled.
Yeah.
This is not a crazy, outlandish anti-vax. And just so everybody can be very clear, I am proudly anti-vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And I am proudly anti-vaccine because I am proudly ex-vaccine, meaning that vaccines when I was 13 almost took my life.
Yeah.
So for everybody out there, I think the most important thing we can do is reclaim our objectivity, which simply means I have the right to change my mind in the presence of new information.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if the new information that we have is so overwhelming that while we argue about whether or not a pharmaceutical company should be indemnified, of course they should not for any product, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But if we argue over that, and as we argue over the childhood vaccine schedule, and as we argue over the entire corrupt system that has been established since 1986, we can at least take a product off the market that we definitively know causes harm and can lead to premature death among all age ranges. This is not a crazy sensationalist take.
No,
you can
not at
pull
all.
it off the market, and we can now have an objective discussion about how we are going to make America healthy again.
Yeah.
Because I promise you this, you will never make America healthy again by injecting poisons, carcinogens, mutagens, and substances that lead to infertility into the human body. It's an absolute impossibility.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I have to say, in hosting this program, and I explained this to Dr. Judy Mikovits last week, it's actually strange because you two are exactly parallel in the timeline of this program. I did back-to-back interviews now twice in a row with first Dr. Mikovits and now you, Dr. Ealy, and by chance. But I was not a quote-unquote anti-vaxxer when I was offered the opportunity to host this program. I just firmly objected to the way the COVID shots were being foisted over the community and the society. Then I heard from various doctors who said, truthfully, in medical school, we didn't really receive any training as to what a vaccine was in particular. We were just told, well, vaccines are great. Here's how you administer a vaccine. And then we had another class of doctors, you, Dr. Mikovits, Dr. Leonard Horowitz, who were more direct in just saying you object to the practice of vaccination. It's a harmful practice. And you all explained that in detail, but from three totally different angles in three successive episodes of this program. Go check out Bassline's episode 19, 20, and 21. That's like your little anti-vax trio of three different perspectives from a naturopathic doctor, from a research scientist, and from an oral surgeon, why vaccines are a big scam. And I have to say, I have a lot more research to do. I want to be as thorough as I can as I continue to look into this matter. But the anti-vax, quote-unquote anti-vax position is very in-depth. It's not a bunch of boogaloo. It's very well researched. There's a lot of very concerning things that are not being addressed by health authorities. And, it's just an absurd argument. I mean, the history of the polio vaccine, which also is sort of a dubious history, we need to look into that. Check out Bassline annual episode, or our first anniversary episode with Dr. Christina Parks, who goes about an hour into that program because it's an extra long edition for our 1 hour anniversary. She goes into depth about the history of the polio shots and things that we weren't told about all of that. But to say, oh, the polio shot is great, therefore we need to inject you and your children with just a bunch of different shots because polio, that's not a very sound argument. It's like if you're fielding a losing basketball team, but you want to keep referring back to the 1967 Knicks or whatever. It's like, yeah, but you've been playing a lot of losing basketball since that one glorious achievement that you claim, which actually we need to sort of unpack and reinvestigate some of those claims, not to mention the Cutter incident. But I want to say, for anyone who would like to join us,
that's something you don't hear too often, the Cutter incident.
Yeah, but the thing is that I like about that reference is you can look it up on Wikipedia, and you can see how they try to use this mitigating language to say, oh, well, the polio vaccine is great, but we just injured thousands of folks and killed hundreds, which I think is really thousands. But it was such a wonderful thing that we did. It's like...
But it saved lives. You know what's interesting about that, Jeremiah? It's the same thing, and it's the only issue I had with the congressional subcommittee report that I was referencing.
Yeah,
is that they said in one sentence, and I mean this was really literally one sentence and then another, and then the next one in the summary. They said that Operation Warp Speed saved millions of lives. They said this, and this is the kind of nonsense that people have to say to get things published.
Yeah.
This is how indoctrinated we are.
Yeah.
They said it was an absolute success. It saved millions of lives, of course, without any proof, without any citation. That they, and then in the very next sentence, they said the vaccine, which of course it's not a vaccine, the vaccine was unable to prevent transmission. So
then what was the basis of the mandates, first of all?
Exactly. That was my point in 2021 when I was leading the charge on showing, I was going down to every single state health department and showing and reporting on the number of quote-unquote breakthrough cases. It was like, folks, It's not stopping transmission. So what did they pivot their narrative to? Well, it reduces the symptomatology. On what basis are you making that claim? That is such an absolutely egregious, it is an intellectually offensive claim without any data to say that you, by taking this experimental shot that we know injures, that we know kills, that we know does not prevent transmission, it somehow magically is going to reduce symptomatology. And I have no evidence to support that, but because I'm the CDC and because we are beholden to our puppet masters above us, and because those puppet masters control the mainstream media, we are going to put that out and everybody will just blindly accept it as fact. This entire thing is a farce, Jeremiah, and there's no greater farce than this conceptually for people. And I want your audience to understand this, the depth of this. Vaccines do not create immunity.
Yeah.
A vaccine, at best, is an artificial infection into your body that bypasses the protection of your digestive tract, where more than 70% of your immune system exists.
Yeah.
If by some stretch of luck you are able to withstand that shot, it does not confer immunity. It confers a challenge to your health. Mm-hmm. What confers immunity is your immune system.
Right.
That's why it is named for what it is, and that's why natural immunity will always be superior to anything that can be artificially offered to the human body.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I don't have your expertise whatsoever, but that's what my research has indicated. And at any rate, and I insist this, and I must insist again, this is a basic human rights issue, first of all. Second of all, let's unpack the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of a particular medical intervention, because I should always have the right to say no as it pertains to my own health and safety, even just for religious reasons. You know, I have a friend I've probably referenced on this program before. She's a supporter and a listener of my medical freedom work. Actually, her parents were old school anti-vaxxers, and she's in phenomenal health herself, just, you know, ageless wonder, wonderful skin, all across the board, just healthy woman. And, you know, she's a scientist as well. And amazingly, all the scientists at her job, they all just lined up to take their experimental injections, and she refused to. And she cited religious exemption. And they said, well, what's your religion? She said, well, I believe in God. He said, well, what texts are you citing to say that you have a justification not to take this? She said, no text. God told me not to take it. And that's it. So there you go. You know,
that's enough.
I don't need you to intercede in my relationship with God. You know, it's like, I don't understand how they were so successful in removing religious exemptions in New York State and in California. Wait a second, aren't you basically now declaring yourself to be God? My religion doesn't allow you to supersede my religion. You know, so I'm just kind of wondering, where are the folks of faith to stand up, or just constitutionalists to stand up and just say, you know, you can't just overrule religious exemption like that. And I'm going to say as well, as far as vax versus anti-vax, and I've said this as well, but you let us harm ourselves in a million different ways in American society. We can smoke cigarettes, we can drink alcohol, we could break our back trying to do stunts on a BMX bike or doing motocross racing, or people who have gotten severely injured doing professional wrestling, which is not even a real sport. It's people pretending to fight and hurt each other, and a million other things that people do, bungee jumping. We do any sort of thing that you're taking a risk. Well, let me take a risk by not allowing chemicals to be injected into my body. How about that? And then I'll add to that, let's have it out. If my family survives without our chemical injections, will you document that? You document and acknowledge the fact that we didn't take your injections and we didn't die of polio or measles or whatever. We lived our healthy lives. Let's keep an eye on how people are doing after not receiving injections. And if we die of polio, well, then go ahead, make me the poster child and say, see, they should have taken their polio vaccine. But let's have it out at this point. You have your belief, we have ours. Let's let it play out. Just like there are car accidents, unfortunately, in society, or airplane accidents, we can't protect anyone. Let me make the choice of risking my life, quote unquote, by not taking all of your various experimental concoctions and injections. If you'd like to talk to Dr. Ealy, I would love to hear from our astute audience. The number, of course, is 888-874-4888. And as a policy, I'll mention now, you know what, if we get started, you can just go ahead and call and listen in on the line, and that way you can get in order, get your place in line. And my engineers, Ryan and Dylan, two phenomenal young men who help the wagon wheels roll over here every day on Progressive Radio Network, they'll notify me that you're on the line, and it allows me to plan as I, think on my toes here. This is live radio, and we're constantly calling audibles. But if we know we have folks on the line, we'll make it a point to hear from you in at least the last 10 minutes of the program. But let's jump ahead, Dr. Ealy. You were getting into it just now, really thoroughly, actually. So I guess you kind of already answered the question. But I guess to follow up a little bit in terms of other people, audience members who want to engage in this conversation, what are some of the key points? I don't want to say an elevator pitch, so to speak, but give us some of the main points that you would like a so-called pro-vaxxer to be aware of, as we so-called anti-vaxxers, which are really just people who are fighting for our basic right to say no. But we had an interesting conversation on this on this program recently about labeling yourself anti-vaxxer as opposed to not doing. I kind of like the label myself because I don't mind being involved with a group of intelligent outcasts who are being wrongly outcasted and criticized. But I also understand the point of view that I don't like to concede that home base to the bad guys, that what they're doing is the normal thing, and we're in reaction to that. We should be home base. They're the ones with the radical ideas of needing to make these interventions into the body. So hopefully we'll get there. It's sort of like the deconstructionist philosophy. We have to go through a process. But
right.
what would you say?
Construct something else.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But Dr. Ealy, I've had some recent interactions where I'm getting a little bit more bold in putting the vaccine conversation on the table, not in an awkward way. Hopefully, we just sit down at the dinner table and force people to engage in this discussion. But here and there, family members, coworkers, friends, I've been kind of sliding into the conversation when it was appropriate to do so. And I find it amazing. There's a lot of people who they're very pro-vax initially. Well, no, I don't support that. I'm not anti-vax. And you just raise a couple of things to their attention, and the facade just comes crashing down within seconds. It's amazing how uninformed people are on this subject, but they'll stand firm in some cases in their ignorance of, frankly, really not being very well versed in the subject. But what would you like to impart on a pro-vaxxer if you just had a few minutes to reason with someone?
Well, I think the first thing I like to do is find common ground with everybody. I'm not here to argue and fight with people. I'm not here to have you tell me what's right for me, though, either, like you suggested. This is absolutely a human rights issue, first and foremost. The first thing that I like to do is ask just questions, Jeremiah. The first question is, do you like air? And a person will always say, yes, I like air. And get good. Then we have found something immediately that we can agree on. Now I'm no longer the boogeyman. Okay?
I like that.
Now, the second question I have for them is, if I put aborted human fetal tissue, greed monkey kidney cells, blood from a baby cow that was pulled from its heart while it's alive, red dyes, yellow dyes, aluminum, mercury, nail polish remover, and so forth on a spoon, and fed it to an infant, what would you do?
Mm-hmm.
And most of them say, I'll report you to Child Protective Services.
Right.
And I say, you'd be right to do so, because we all intrinsically know those ingredients could harm that child.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ask them to get their phone, and I say, can you open up a browser? Can you go and type in vaccine, media, and excipient summary? And they will, and then they pull it up, and what do they see? All of those ingredients that I just named on that spoon are in the shots. But I have them do that so that they come to their own self-realization instead of being told by somebody that they feel that they have a disagreement with.
Right.
Because you can't see something, you can't unsee something. Now, the CDC is aware of that tactic, and I have to bring this to everybody's attention now. Guess what the CDC has done, because I've been doing this for now several years? They have removed the vaccine media and excipient summary page. That just happened about 2 weeks ago. That is damning, in my opinion. Yeah. Now, fortunately, I've saved the CDC's excipient media summaries for years, so I have them. But a governmental organization is in violation of law when they restrict information from the public that pays their checks. It's a violation of what's called the Information Quality Act. And so in doing that, the CDC has removed information that is pertinent to an American making an informed decision on behalf of themselves and their children. So, that's another angle that I'm going to be putting in this paper, this peer-reviewed paper, just to bring it to everybody's knowledge. Like, hey, the CDC is corrupt, and we have to address corruption, because if we allow corruption to continue, all we're doing is inviting disaster into our lives. It's just a certainty that it'll happen.
Yeah.
But I think for conversations with pro-vaxxers, if I have never needed, Jeremiah, to go significantly past the ingredients. Mm-hmm. Most people, when they see the ingredients, go, I didn't know they were injecting that into my child. That explains a lot now.
Yeah.
For the folks that need more, I say, okay, well, let's go to Varus, and I teach them about Varus, and I show them all the injuries, and I show them all the reports, and they say, well, but anybody can report to Varus. And I said, yeah, anybody can, but over 85% of all reports are done by medical professionals. Yeah. So are you going to accuse 85% of those of being liars?
Yeah.
And on top of that, did you know that the CDC verifies every single report published?
Yeah.
Any report that's published has been verified by the CDC and the NVSS over a course of at least 40 days.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, folks, I have to follow up on that comment there, Dr. Ealy, which is I wrote an article on exactly why vaccine injuries are underreported and will be underreported. It's an article I published on July 11th called Radio Silence. And there's a lot of things that offhand are simply true. For example, you can't publish a report when you're dead. So when I die, I can't run to file a report about it, right? So these are just basic things that you don't need to be an expert to understand some really basic facts about what's going on. And there's a lot of features of why we are getting underreporting. And number one, courtesy of Jessica Rose, another friend of this program, Dr. Jessica Rose points out, well, anywhere that things are reported, underreporting is a thing. Because there's a total number of reports, and they will not all be filed. You will always get a lesser number because underreporting is a thing. So please check out, again, my Substack. My Substack is rapidly growing. I've written 23, I believe it is, medical freedom-focused articles. Every article has its own angle, has its own personality, has its own flavor. And my following is steadily growing. I'm at the point now where I had 1.2 thousand subscribers on Substack, and suddenly I just burst past 2,000, and now I get maybe 3 to 5 new subscriptions every day. But I would love, again, if the audience of this program can just expedite that process. It's just please fan the flames, because first of all, it's evidence to all the people who try to denounce me that I'm not crazy whatsoever, and many people are identifying with the observations that I'm making. And second of all, most importantly, I want this conversation to just expand. They say a rising tide raises all ships. I want our leaders in the medical freedom movement, if they have 500,000 followers, I want them to have 1 million. I want them to have 10 million, because that's how many people can then just have access to a piece of information at a given time. That's why I'm really asking you guys to do what you can to expand this community. Please go to X and join our Stop the Shots community. We're trying to break 2,000 members today. Last night when I was on live, we went up from 1.8K to 1.9K. Let's break 2,000 followers, or 2,000 members, I mean to say, not followers, 2,000 members of the Stop the Shots community today. But we have callers on the line. Actually, we have a bunch of callers, which I'm excited about. And I would ask that all of my esteemed callers try to be concise, if you will, because I want to leave room for additional callers here. And we have, first of all, a very dear brother who is a friend of this program, Muhammad, calling from New York. How are you? Happy New Year, brother.
Yes, sir. Jeremiah?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Good to hear from you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Hey, Jeremiah, you're doing a wonderful job, and I really appreciate you. I promised to send a donation to you. Could you please give me the address or where I can send that, and do it kind of slowly so I can. I'll get that off today. I'm going to the post office.
Oh yeah, do you send email, Muhammad? Can you send me an email and I'll send you my address?
Yes. Okay. How do I email you?
It's
Jeremiah?
JeremiahHosea, Jeremiah Hosea at gmail.com. So
At Gmail. Okay.
yeah, Jeremiah. And by the way, anybody who wants to reach out to me about a chess lesson or anything else that I've mentioned, please, I'm accessible to the people. I'm a man of the people. Send me an email. If you want a link to the Twitter group that I'm mentioning, reach out to me by all means, Jeremiah Hosea at gmail.com.
Okay. I received that. You're doing a wonderful job and wonderful guests. I really, really enjoyed this and benefit so much from it. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Muhammad.
And that vaccine, what that doctor was saying, I know 3 people who took those shots and they got COVID. So it doesn't stop no COVID.
Nope. It increases your chances of getting COVID, as confirmed by the Cleveland Clinic. And actually, the Cleveland Clinic came across that accidentally, and they went back and conducted another study and said, oops, we further confirmed what we found in the first place. If you take a shot, you're more likely to catch the thing that you were supposed to be protected from. So how absurd to mandate that you take a product and then you're more likely to get the thing you were trying to prevent, and you're exposing yourself to 1,291 side effects according to the Pfizer documents, including COVID and including death. And this is all for not immunity, but for a window of protection. So you're going to keep rolling the dice of exposing yourself to all of these acute possibilities and organ failure, cancer, etc., to get a few months of supposed symptom-reducing effects. I mean, what a crappy deal. Talk about a crappy deal. I mean,
Can I jump in here
please,
real quick, Jeremiah?
Please, Dr. Ealy.
So, do you know why the Cleveland Clinic substantiated their own research?
No, please. I'd love to hear this.
Because they are ignoring one sad reality of this whole fiasco, that there is incessant production internally within the mammalian cellular mechanism of spike glycoprotein. If your tests, and they are still using, sadly, PCR, which we all know should not be used for diagnostics. We should be using antibody titers, like they did at least in 1976 for the swine flu, and to verify, what was going on. But the Cleveland Clinic, what they're neglecting to tell people in their findings is that you get a process of incessant production of spike glycoprotein. Like I said in 2020 when they were proposing this, there is no off switch for this. And the N1 methylated pseudouridine that Katalin Kariko and Drew Wiseman put in to the damn shots, and that they won a Nobel Prize for some reason.
And they're ironically wearing masks to receive their reward, which shows, well, your intervention didn't work because you're still wearing physical paraphernalia to try to protect yourself.
So the reality is that when you get injected, particularly with the second injection of Moderna or the Pfizer, and then subsequent boosters, what you are doing is you are prolonging a detoxification period at the cell level. You're reintroducing the code to continue to produce the spike glycoprotein. And when your cell is producing the spike glycoprotein, Carlo Brogna developed out of Italy, developed a very interesting and a peer-reviewed and published research on this, showing that he can determine, based upon the spike glycoprotein that is being produced by the body, whether or not it is from the infection or from the injection. He found 2 places in the spike glycoprotein where protein sequences are changed when it is manufactured by your body following the injection. And so we have everything we need to be able to tell people definitively, yeah, that's from with the symptoms you're experiencing, the death that your family member experienced. Was it caused by the shots? Yeah, it's easy to tell. It's easy to determine that now, but nobody's doing it. So you have to ask why. Well, they're saying that, the Cleveland Clinic, to continue to confuse the audience and say to them, listen, you still got sick anyway, but let's just have you believe that the symptoms would have been worse if you hadn't got the shot.
Right.
Instead of telling them the truth. The reason you're having those symptoms is because you got the shots. You are living a vaccine injury in reality right now. We're just lying to you and telling you it's something else.
Right. Yeah. I would like to follow up on that, but I want to get to our callers here. We only have a few minutes, so I'd love to hear right now from Lori in Pennsylvania. How are you, Lori? Thanks for calling.
Hi, Jeremiah. How you doing? I belong to Stop the Shots, and I just want to say it's a great community where we can all reach out and help one another, and that's what it's all about. Jeremiah already knows my story, but I don't know if Dr. Ed does. But on 6/23 of 2021, I gave my 2 Pfizer jab neighbors a ride. At the time, they both had the 1 and 2 shots only, and it's over 3.5 years, and I'm still having issues, stabbing headaches, vision issues, sometimes numbness in my fingers when waking up, and my period is still all messed up. A lot of other issues did go away, but they came out with that study not too long ago that, a lot of women were having problems with their periods, and within 6 days from them in my car, I did have, bleeding, really heavy bleeding for 6 days straight. And other issues. I don't want to take up too much time because you have other callers and stuff. But I want to really know, is the occupation, they called it occupational exposure on the clinical trials, is it just as bad as if I would have taken both shots myself? Or is it, I'm hoping it's less severe, the shedding is less severe than actually taking the shots.
What do you say, Dr. Ealy? Yeah, thank you, Lori, for calling. And yeah, Lori is a very encouraging member of our Stop the Shots community, despite the hardship that she's been going through.
Well, first and foremost, my heart goes out to you and to everybody who's experiencing these shots. I think the one thing I encourage everybody who's going through this healing process is to make sure that you do not add on additional guilt to yourself. You were lied to by the most diabolical and well-funded liars in the human history. It wasn't you. You're supposed to be able to trust your government. You're supposed to be able to trust our media. You're supposed to be able to trust these institutions. That we can't is an eye-opening experience for many of us. But don't add on guilt to your healing process. Number 2, it sounds to me like that's Guillain-Barré syndrome from what she's describing, and I hope she's been evaluated for that. I would encourage her to look into prodrome sciences and the work of Dr. Diane Goodnow and the work of what are called plasmalogens to help restore the myelin sheath, along with bioactive copper and red light, which is our go-to at the Energetic Health Institute and our Artist Cellular Healing Program to help people recover from these injuries. And we've had a lot of success with that. So, again, that's prodrome sciences for plasmalogens. bioactive copper from Global Healing, and red light.
Yeah.
In combination, do a wonderful job.
And Lori, we're going to get.
I didn't feel like
I'm sorry, I was going to say.
Feel Jose.
Go ahead quickly.
Go
ahead.
I just meant. I just didn't understand the full breadth of the questions. I guess what I was saying.
Right. I was going to say. So Lori is injured from shedding in particular. But Lori, we're going to have Dr. Ealy in a Stop the Shots community space next week, and I'll DM you and definitely give you more time to talk to the good doctor. We're pretty much out of time today, unfortunately. Time flies when you're having fun. Thank you so much, Dr. Ealy, for all that you're doing. You're phenomenal, you're inspirational, and it's really an honor to have you as the first guest of the year. If we could, we do have one of my favorite callers, Brother David. Can you just close us out and say something maybe in like 20 seconds?
Yes, thank you very much. Brother David here from Brooklyn. I'm in my 9th decade, 92 of age, and I'm thinking about, I made a big mistake when I couldn't go some places unless I had the shot, and I made the mistake of doing it, and then I had a emergency thing, and I was taken to the hospital, and they gave me the shot again. So I'm trying to get away from allopathic doctors. I need somebody like Dr. Ealy and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to getting someone that takes Medicare and I can trust. I mean, I laugh at some of the allopathic doctors that they've given me that don't know anything, and it's very sad.
Well,
so I'm looking forward. Also, you gave them a meeting one time, on I think a Sunday or so, and I couldn't quite get there.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could do a meeting again somewhere in Manhattan, and I can take a Cesaride to get there.
Well, yeah, I would love to do another keynote speech for the New York City Medical Freedom Alliance. I have been attending their meetings since I gave that speech. It's an interesting group of folks, lots of different backgrounds, and we're out of time. But everyone, if you want to reach me, Jeremiah Hosea, Hosea, at Gmail, Jeremiah Hosea at Gmail. Thank you, Dr. Ealy. Thanks to our astute callers. Everyone stay strong, stay inspired, have a beautiful day, beautiful weekend, and let's figure out what we can do to stop the shots. Thank you.
With open arms towards the sun, you feel the warmth of the rays, and then you know you're alive and you don't have to be afraid.